kids. Today we're going to do an art class. We're going to learn about light and shade. My name's Amy, so I guess we'll call it Art with Amy. We're going to paint a tree. This is the tree that I did today with my kids who are 3 and 7. This is the one that I did as a demonstration for them, so I'm going to use it as a demonstration for you. I did it because my 7-year-old boy told me that a tree would look much better if it was flat and had no light and shade, and I wanted to prove him wrong. So we did this little exercise. So your mum or dad or whoever the grown-up is who's looking after you has hopefully printed you off a little picture like this. You don't have to use this one, you can draw your own, but we're not going to do the drawing section now, we're just going to do the painting. We are going to paint this tree here. This is not my photograph, I did not take this picture. Now, hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. I'm using basic kids paint that I'm guessing everyone has at home. We're not using professional watercolors or anything like that because I know that not everyone would have those. So all you need is your kids paints, any paintbrush, it really doesn't matter what your paintbrush is like, a little jar of water, clean water, and a kitchen towel, okay? Now, hopefully you should have the image of the tree in front of you that you can use to copy. Now, we're using watercolor techniques because kids' paints are basically watercolors. And in watercolor, we start from light and then we work our way towards the dark. So if we look at this picture, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We're going to start with the trunk of the tree. If you can see on the trunk of the tree, the bit that where the light is shining, the light is coming in from this side. Where the sun is shining on the tree, it's kind of yellowy. Now, in a kid's paint set, we haven't got a huge choice of colours, but that does not matter at all. So we're going to start with the yellow lights on the side of the tree. So we get our brush wet, get some yellow paint, and you want to get it really, really, really juicy. I don't know if you can see that. I'm really mixing that so we've got loads of liquid, getting it really wet. The lights we want quite diluted. That means they've got lots of water in. So get a nice big chunk of water and we're just going to brush this all along our light side of the tree. So if our light is coming in from this side, it's these edges of the tree. And we're keeping it nice and wet. So we're just brushing the light all across this side. I'm going to put some up in the bulk of the tree as well, where the leaves are going to cover it slightly, but that doesn't matter. Now, while it's still wet, we're going to get some brown. Is that brown? My daughter has mixed up all these colours, but that does not matter. We're going to get some brown and we're going to work the other side. So we're going to take the darks in on the opposite side. And it doesn't matter if they touch. Where they touch, it's fine. Because your watercolour is still wet, it will just blend nicely. So we're going to go all along the darker side of the tree where the sun is not reaching it. If you look in the middle of your picture, you'll see it's really dark in the inside and it's really dark on this side. So it doesn't matter at the moment, the yellow and the brown do not touch. So filling in those bits, again, keeping it nice and wet. Wash your paintbrush. Now I'm going to dab my paintbrush off a tiny bit onto the tissue. That was too much. So it's not dripping. And then I'm going to wipe down in between these two colours. They're going to meet. And the brown and the yellow is kind of going to flow together. Don't get too much water. This is just printer paper. It can't take loads of water. But just enough so that it's kind of mixed in. There we go. Now, can you kind of see what I've done there? So we've got our nice lights on one side and then our darks on the other. Now, again, as I said before, we haven't got loads of colours in a kid's paint set, but that does not matter. We're going to get blue. Yes, blue. And with our blue, we're going to make it really, really, really thick. So it's got loads of water in, but it's thick. So we're going to get dark blue. What I want to do now is not have too much water on the paper with this, otherwise it's going to spread out loads. And we don't want it to spread out loads because it's going to turn our tree blue. Now what we're going to focus on the really, really, really dark parts of the tree. So if you look in the far corners, it kind of almost looks black, but we don't like to use black. We're going to use blue to give it a bit more vibrance, a bit more of a feeling to it. So we're going to go just along those really dark bits. Okay? Right, so that's our trunk kind of coming together. That can stay wet, it doesn't matter. We're going to move on to the leaves of the trees. Now again, we're going to start on the light parts. If you look on the picture again, you can see over here mainly, but also throughout the tree, there are flecks of yellow. That's the lightest bits. So we're going to start with those. They're mostly on this side, but we have got them going right the way through. Now again, you need your brush really wet. Get loads of yellow mixed up. Really mix it up nice and thick. We're going to have it quite diluted though, and I want all these bits to stay wet. So we're literally just going to slop it on in blobs. It doesn't matter if it touches your trunk. It's going to get loads, and we're going to fill this up. It can be really rough. It doesn't have to be any particular shape. And it kind of looks nice. See how the paint, where it's thicker, kind of pools in these little bits? We like those bits because they add texture at the end. So you can do blobs. You don't do this if you can help it, because you're going to see all those lines afterwards. So we're just kind of dabbing it on. Mom, Dad, you can do this as well. If you fancy it, you may as well. We got nothing else to do. Sorry, I keep sniffing. It's cold in here. So I'm just dabbing that all over. I'm going to even do some that aren't even touching the tree. Okay, so they're just kind of spread out. Some are joined up with some water. Again, none of this is too dry. When I did this with my son earlier, I noticed that his brush was really dry. So I really want you to have blobs of water. Now we are doing on the dark side as well, just a few bits. You can link them up with a bit of water. And that's going to give us a nice texture later on when we add our greens. Okay, so far we've got what looks like an autumn tree. I don't have a very good yellow. My yellow is kind of mustardy, but if you have a yellow that's more lemon, I'm going to steal one from my professional set just to cheat. If you have one that's more lemon, that will look even nicer. So keeping it really light. Okay, I've added some more lemony yellow because mine really was an autumny colour. And this is a spring tree because it's spring. So don't forget to keep a few nice, really light yellow bits on your dark side of the tree, because those are the bits that are at the front. So the bits at the front of the tree will still hit the sunshine, and so they still look yellow. Okay, we're good. Now we're going to move on to our green. Greens in kids' watercolour paints are nothing like greens in real life, but we don't care. We'll soon realise that does not matter at all. Now we're going to put it over the yellow. You can put it in the gaps where you left some white. Again, it's really, really, really liquidy, this paint. Like I'm completely filling the whole paint well with water and sloshing it around to get it nice and thick. So it's kind of creamy. Like my whole paintbrush is thick with paint there. And we're going to fill in all the kind of spaces, mainly focusing on the middle of the tree. We're going to put some on our yellow side. I'm actually just doing blobs. And if you notice that, I'm not painting like this in lines. I'm just doing blobs. Some subjects you would need to paint in lines, but not really for a tree. So I don't want to join it up, because if you think about the leaves on a tree, they're not in lines, they're in blobs. So I'm not joining bits together. I'm kind of keeping it scattered. So leaving some white bits because they're the sky. Okay, so we're just filling that in, and we will go over to the dark side with this green as well and fill those in over there. Dun, dun, dun. Remember to keep your brush nice and wet. A dry brush won't make a nice finished piece. It doesn't matter that all these colours are kind of running together. It doesn't matter. We really like that actually. And then we're going to move on to our darker leaves. This dries really quickly. Sorry, I keep sniffing. That must be really annoying for you. This dries really quickly, so we are working quite quickly. Feel free to pause or to go back if I'm going too quick for you. I'm also aware that I haven't got that much space on my phone. So I'm mixing up some dark green now. Again, it's really thick. Hope you can see that. It's like I've really filled that well with water, so it's a nice thick colour. Now we're just going to carry on the same side, same thing on the dark side. And if you ever find that you've got too much water on your paintbrush, just dab it onto the tissue to get it off. Because if you have too much, it's going to make your paper all wrinkly. And again, I'm just using standard printer paper here, nothing fancy, because I'm trying to use what you guys will probably have at home. Now, with a dark green, don't go over the yellow. You want to keep some of these yellow light bits in here, but you can go in and put a few blobs in your lighter section, because there are, if you look on your picture, the photograph, there are some dark bits in with the light. So we're just going to put a few splodges, and let them kind of trickle out like that. Okay, again, I'm going to do some that aren't attached. I know that doesn't really happen in real life because they would be floating leaves, but it's a painting, not real life, so it doesn't matter. Kind of makes it look a bit more realistic, I think. So there we go. We kind of filled our left-hand side with darks, but with a small amount of yellow and light green, and our right-hand side with loads of yellows with a small amount of dark greens. And in the middle, we've got a kind of a mix of both. It's quite dark. Now, where I want some really, really, really dark bits, I'm going to still some brown. I'm going to mix it on the paint palette. I'm mixing brown and green together now. I want it mostly green, but I want it darkened up by the brown. You could even add a bit of blue in there to make it even darker. And we're going to put a few really dark bits. This is shadow, really dark shadow. So we're not even really seeing the colour of the leaves here because it's so dark. Oops. That one, and that one. So without using black, because we really try and not use black when we're painting, we're using the other colours, real life colours, to make the darks. Because if you look at a tree, there's no black. The tree doesn't have any black on it. Okay, so I've just put some real darks in there. And there's even, I should probably clean the brush. There's even, right in the middle of the tree, you can see a few bits of branch. So what we're going to do is add those on. There are some of them are kind of in straight lines or like wiggly lines. They're going to swish in to our wet paint, but that's absolutely fine. There's a few over here. I might take this opportunity to darken up some of my branches too. So adding a few lines in. Those are my dogs going crazy outside because somebody just walked past the window. They're going stir crazy at home as well. So again, mixing up a bit of blue, a bit of green, a bit of brown, and just putting in a few. It doesn't matter what they are. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a branch or a leaf that I'm doing. I don't need to think about what it is. I'm just putting in the vague colours that I can see on the picture. Okay, so filling in some of your spaces. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with that as a tree. Now we're going to go for the shadow along the bottom, because if the sun is shining in from this side, then you're going to have a shadow on that side. Now, only draw a shadow on the one side. You don't want to have a shadow on both sides, because in this picture, our sunlight is here. So your shadow is going to start at the bottom of the tree, and it has to be touching the tree. Otherwise, the tree looks like it's floating. So your shadow is going to touch the bottom of the tree, and it's going to come straight along. And we're not going to do a round shadow. We're going to just do a line, because when the sun is low, you have really long shadows. And I'm going to do it in kind of a nondescript colour. So I'm going to kind of mix a bit of green, a bit of blue and a bit of brown together in one of the inkwells. Doesn't matter which. By this point, you've probably got a bit of a mess in there anyway, which is fine. And I'm just going to drag it along here. And I'm going to kind of make it look a bit irregular because we don't really get straight lines in nature. Take it up the tree a little bit, like that. So there you've got your shadow. And then I'm going to get this really vibrant green. And this is going to finish off our kind of grassy meadow area. So I'm going to start it on the other side. It's very watery. It's very liquidy now. You can even add a bit of yellow actually to this, because the sun is really shining. And then we're going to drag that colour along to the other side. It can touch your shadow, that doesn't matter. Drag that along. And then to make it flat, because the horizon would be flat, we're going to go along the top. Again, it doesn't matter that those two are touching. And I'm going to just lift off a bit of this heavy bit there, because it's not really that heavy in real life. There. And there we go. Don't forget to sign your name on the bottom, because this is your artwork. So there is our finished tree. Should dry really quickly because kids' paints do. And there we go. I'm going to do another lesson with my kids tomorrow. So I'll send you that one if it goes well. If you've got anything that you'd like to paint in particular that I can help you with, feel free to send me a message, or get the grown-up who's looking after you to send me a message. And I'll be happy to help you paint that. And please send me your trees. I would love to see what you come up with. Thanks, guys. Bye.